Hi everyone, I'm so excited to have our guest today, Jeff Revilla. He's the founder of Poduty Life LLC and is the man, the expert in live streams and live events. And today we're going to be asking him, and he's going to be showing us the importance of live events for podcasters and creators. Hi, Jeff.
How's it going? Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, before we dive into the monetization, live events, and everything, I'm curious to know what was the spark that led you to create Poduty Live LLC?
Around 2015, there was a platform that was called Blab, BLAB, and it was one of these first four in the box live streaming services that had this amazing social element where when you would press live to go live, it would also record your show for you. But it had this way of delivering 30 to 40 people to your live stream who were like eager to be there, wanted to participate. And I started doing a trivia show. And I started to realize that podcasting could be so much more. It could be a community event. It could be a thing where people are getting together, they're playing games, they're having a good time, and you can make a show out of that. And what ended up happening is Blab didn't really have a way to monetize their platform, and they kind of grew so fast that they grew too fast for their own good. They couldn't keep up with the servers and all the technology and the growth. It just got overwhelming, and they ended up shutting down. And for those of us who were there, Blab left this giant hole in our social lives. It was an incredible platform, and we spent years trying to recreate what Blab gave us. And that's kind of how I got to this idea of, it doesn't matter how or where you record your podcast. If you're with friends, if you're with community, it can be something so much greater than just hitting record in your home studio, releasing an MP3 file to the world, and then coming back in 7 days and looking at the statistics, which is what most podcasters get right now. You record, you release, and you look at your stats, and there's no other feedback. What Blab showed me in that social platform is there's a whole nother community element to this. There's a whole nother way that you can connect with people and be face to face and laugh together and think together. There's just so much more to how all this got started.
Yeah. Okay. The name Pod Duty. Pod Duty. Like, what does Pod Duty mean, and how did you come up with the name?
Yeah, it's a portmanteau of two words put together. Obviously, pod for podcasting. That's the easy one to figure out. And then this has been my mission, right? I've been trying to build this theater space, a community space, and it's been my duty or my mission. So Pod Duty is the name of it. But I also am aware that when people say the word duty, they smirk a little bit and they laugh and they feel like a kid on the playground again. And that's what this place gives you. It gives you this ability to have fun in a safe space and be creative, and it should be fun and lighthearted. And when you say Poduty, you should laugh and smile. It's just part of the fun. Yeah, DUTY, like as in a mission. This is my mission.
Yeah.
This is my duty to serve and to be there for other podcasters. So I also realize that when people say Poduty, they also laugh and smirk a little bit. It makes you feel like a kid on the playground, or it's a little nonsensical. So it invokes this feeling of playfulness, of a safe space, of a place where you can go in and have fun and be with community members. So when you hear the word Poduty, it's funny, and it makes you want to hang out and join your local neighbors and friends at the theater.
Yeah, before we actually go into the live stream and live events for podcasters and creators alike, I know starting a business is not it's not a day job exactly. I would love for you to like just walk us through some of the biggest hurdles you had when you were launching the live podcast theater.
Yeah, I knew I would need time, and I baked into my budgeting what would happen if I don't make any sales or money for a year, right? I knew that this is a new form of entertainment, and I'm attacking this on two ways. For the public, they don't think of podcasting as a place to go to listen to it. Like We have comedy clubs for comedians. They go in and they perform their act and they make you laugh. And people know if I want to see a comedian, I go to a comedy club. If I want to see a band play, I go to a concert venue or a bar. I can go out there to see that. But with podcasting, people think podcasting is something I listen to on my morning commute or while I'm working out, or I have it on in the background while I'm working. I'm trying to show people podcasting is something you can do as a night out. You can have a good time. You could be with people who like the same types of things as you like. So on one hand, I'm training the public. This is a new form of entertainment. On the other hand, most podcasters like being in their home studio. They like recording. Like I'm in my home studio now. It's a safe, controlled space. I got lights on all around me. I got my microphone set up and it's comfortable for me to do that. I'm trying to show podcasters there's a whole nother way to monetize your podcast, probably in a way you never thought of, probably in a way that'll get you to profitability faster than trying to do ads. There's a whole nother way to record your show and have this event where people are coming in and looking at you face to face, laughing at your jokes and shaking your hands. It's a whole new experience for them as well as for the public to go out for a night of entertainment.
Yeah, that's like I feel like what you just described is I feel like it was when Jeff Bezos tried was when he started Amazon. He knew he had a vision that what he was doing was important, but then for most persons he was trying to like convince them that this is the future, ordering books online.
Yeah, I feel very similar. There are things happening behind the scenes with press coverage and articles and blogs being written about this, all these interviews that I'm doing. There's a tremendous amount of interest and I'm starting to get the podcasters to show up. I'm starting to get the public to show up. I feel like there's just this one little piece that's missing that I haven't put together yet. And once I get that piece of the puzzle and all these things come together, this thing's going to go up like an inferno. People are going to catch on. I think this business model is one that is going to get replicated across the country and across the world as people want to go and experience local content creators creating things in real time. I really believe there's a future here and it's a business model that's way bigger than what I'm doing. It's something that can spread across the world and be a new form of entertainment. I feel like it's so close. Like I've been pushing this rock up the hill and up the hill. I keep pushing it and we're getting pretty close to the top. I can tell by the things that are happening in the background, the way that we're booking shows now, the way people are coming in from out of town to book shows. So I know there's something here. And I just need that one little catalyst that ignites the whole thing and
Yeah.
it becomes probably bigger than I can handle myself.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that. Now, I have a rough idea of what a live event entail, but I won't exactly say that I am sure what a live event looks like because for me, the idea is novel, but even the words put together, like it's something like, okay, live events. I seem to understand that. Exactly, what exactly happens at a live podcast recording that makes it different from a studio session and like a normal podcast that we record?
Yeah, when things are live, the there's things that happen in a live event that, there's obviously things could go wrong. The audience could get involved. The segment might not go exactly like you planned, but there's certain things that come from a live show that you'll never get in a polished studio recording. Those moments where you have to pivot or the jokes that come out of being in the moment for not just the content creator up on stage, producing the show, but the audience if they weren't there, they would never see that magic happen. They would never see how one little thing can lead to another, can spark an idea that causes the whole place to erupt in laughter. You don't get that from a cleaned up, polished recording. You get that from having to
Yeah.
be there in the moment to experience it.
Yeah, I think it's like musicians. We could listen to their audio songs and everything, but there's just something different with going to the live events.
Yeah, there's an energy in the room. There's that immediate feedback. There's the even when the show ends, obviously the person on stage is very excited. They had an amazing experience. Just being in front of people and performing in front of people gives you just like a feeling of life that you just don't get in your normal day-to-day job. But when you get off stage now, you're going to make eye contact. And for the audience member, they finally get to put a face to that voice they've been hearing. They get to see what you look like and see how you interact on stage. And they may shake your hand and thank you for doing this. They may thank you for a previous episode a couple weeks ago that changed their life. There's just different types of things that happen when you involve the community in the creation of your podcast.
Yeah, I know you mentioned you talked about how it's very important for the audience member. For me, I feel like it's even more important for the creator, because for most of us, when we're creating, what we see is stats, numbers, and figures, and all those things in the dashboard. But it's a whole different experience when you get to see the people you've been speaking to. Like it makes it real that what I've been doing, I've not just been talking to myself.
Yeah, correct. I mean, one of the things I mentioned earlier is most podcasters record a show, they release it, and then in 7 days they look at how their download numbers were for the week. But
Yeah,
when you're
and it's
doing
just
that, and that's really the only feedback you get, right? Did I get more or less downloads than the week
yeah,
before?
numbers,
Yeah,
just
but
numbers.
with the audience in front of you, if you say something and they all glaze over or they look at their phones, well, that's a good indication that that part of your show might be a little bit weak, might not be ready for the stage, or might not be resonating with the audience at home. And if that's a segment you've been doing in your podcast for the last year, now it's time to, okay, we have some real time feedback. Let's revisit, why are we doing this segment? Who is it for? Why are we doing it? If the audience isn't reacting in real time, they're not reacting at home when they're listening to it. So that
Yeah.
feedback, that eye contact, the laughter, the clapping, that tells you, that gives you all the answers you need of how your show should go.
Like I feel like for most comedians, they have what I think I've forgotten the term they use, but some of them they go to comedy clubs to test their jokes before they perform it at a very in front of a bigger audience. And for a podcaster, it's both testing their feedback, their content, and everything at a smaller audience before releasing it out to the public and seeing what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I think you're describing open mics where
Yeah,
you,
open
you
mic. Yeah,
go
that's the
in,
that's
you can try out new material. There's no schedule. It's just whoever shows up is performing that night.
yeah.
I'm talking right now about putting an event like that together, like a Tuesday night. All we're going to do is just go up on stage and try new ideas, try new concepts, pitch new ideas to each other. And it's kind of like a show about podcasting for podcasters to come together and brainstorm on different ideas.
Yeah.
Maybe they have an idea for a segment for their show. So, hey, I'm going to try out this segment. Normally my show is this, but I'm going to add this in here. And then for them, they can get some real time feedback on, okay, that kind of worked. I can see that intro was a little weird. Maybe I didn't explain it quite right, but once they understood it, yeah, that was pretty good. So that's something I want to refine and try to add into my show.
Yeah, as you just while you were explaining the live event and everything, I just realized that live events is actually really, really big, because a lot of things can fall into live events as long as they happen live and they're events, right?
Oh yeah. So I mean, even the stage that I have, we have HDMI access on the stage. So if you wanted to come in with your laptop and plug in and broadcast your screen to our screens in the theater, you could do a slideshow presentation. So if you want to do even like a training session with maybe your sales team, or a document on how to be a better podcaster, right? You want to do an event on teaching podcasting to other people. That stage is flexible enough to handle different kinds of events. We do live trivia sometimes. We've done fundraisers for animal shelters. So we're able to pivot that stage in a way that makes sense for the type of event that we're having.
Yeah, I feel like it's like podcasting itself. There are solo episodes, there are documentaries, there are radio dramas or podcast dramas. There are different styles, and it's you can do anything. It's not like you have to do solo episodes if you want to be a podcaster. Like various styles have done well, and it just depends on what you're trying to communicate and the modes that suits you. I'm saying that live events, it's not like this is the way you have to do it. There are different approach and different types of live events you could do. All right, I would love for you to share some live, because I'm having some rough sketches. Like for example, it could be, let's say you have a political community awareness podcast show. You could have something a live event where you invite your audience members and then they become participants of the show. So it's more like a community town hall kind of live event. So everybody gets to pitch their idea, and it's more like a discussion, but everything is recorded. And that's like one idea that I'm thinking of. And then there's the normal standard stuff where it's a guy on the stage presenting to people. Just you get what I'm saying. So I'd love for you.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of the approach, some of the formats we could pick if we wanted to do live events?
Yeah, like you mentioned, like a news or political show where it's just one person who's a host and is going through stories. Very simple to bring in a laptop, pull up your stories while you're talking, giving your feedback. We had interview shows where there's a host that comes in, they bring their guest up on stage, they do a back and forth Q&A, and then we pass the microphone. The audience can ask questions, the people watching at home can ask questions. We've had panel discussions where there's a moderator and we have bring in two or three experts up on the stage, and the moderators asking the questions. Some questions come from the audience, some questions come from just the moderator being a good interview. We've had game show style where there's a host up on stage and the audience is playing along on their phones, a trivia game, and there's a real-time scoreboard. So we're incorporating all these interactive elements. I do a show called Rise and Outshine, which is a showcase for podcasters. They can come on, they do 10 minutes of their show. And while they're doing that, again, interactivity, the audience at home is scoring them and critiquing the show, all with the intent of giving feedback. How can we make this show better? Where was it lagging? And it's all done with like love and respect to make sure that the podcaster knows we're only telling you these things because we want to help you. And we're not doing anything to have malicious intent. It's a very positive and uplifting experience, especially for the creators who get that feedback back. They're like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know. Like I wasn't talking into the microphone or my volumes were off or my stream was lagging. They're getting all this feedback they never even thought of before. So the stage is very, very flexible. And even with an interview podcast, you could be on the stage. Maybe you have a co-host with you, but your guest that you're interviewing isn't in the town that we're in. They're in California or New York, and you can bring them up on the TV, up on stage.
Yeah.
Now you're doing an interview with somebody anywhere in the world.
Yeah. Wow. That's like, I feel like it's you can make of it what you want to do. Like there's no like this is what has to be done. It just depends on what you want to do and on how you want to do it.
I tell people you're literally limited by your creativity. I
Yeah.
haven't found an idea for a show that we haven't been able to figure out. But I mean, if you can think about it, I will figure out a way to make sure that that happens for you. Because, like I said, your guests could be somewhere else. I mean, you could even be somewhere else. I could just pull you up on stage and you never even come to the theater and you're doing a show. You could be
Yeah.
interviewing somebody in the theater while you're far away.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of different things and different ways we can set up that stage and different iterations of different shows that we can do.
Yeah. Now, for most podcasters, while they're hearing these things, some of us would have this question in our mind and like, wow, that's great. That's for the big guys, the big podcasters. That's not necessarily for me. So what would you say? Is there a minimum like you need to have to start constraining that idea, or
Yeah, this is very bare bones. If you saw my expense structure, you saw how I pieced this together. I bought the chairs that I purchased. I bought from a school that was closing, and I got them for $2.
wow,
I bought a stage from a karate school. I got 4 sections of stage, and I've been buying stuff off of auction sites that I'm only paying 20% of what they would actually cost. If you're frugal, a lot of a theater is empty space, and then you put chairs in it. Now there's chairs in the theater, and then you put a stage, and that's pretty much it. Like there's not a lot that goes into it. There's some electrical stuff, but what I'm doing is really focused on the small independent creator who's just getting started, who just wants to get up and try something different, try to expand. Some people do it just to see if they can do it, which is nice. I love to see people pushing their own limits. So you can come in and, try it out and do a show that way. You don't have to be or think that you're this gigantic podcast to be able to do something like this. I tell people all the time, you might not be in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area where we're at. Maybe you don't have anything like this, and you probably don't. There's not a lot. I haven't seen a lot of things like this in the world, but there are libraries in your area and they have media rooms. There are coffee shops in your area that are usually slow in the afternoon, or they don't do business all day long. They die out and they look for different ways to bring people in. Even bars during the day are sometimes slow. There are places where you can go if you have a microphone, a mixer, and a speaker, and a way to record that. You can literally take this anywhere. In fact, the first version of what I built, I wanted to fit in the back seat of my car. So I put
Mm.
2 speakers, a podium, a mixer, and some microphones, and I could take this anywhere and set it up. The original concept was called Theater Anywhere. I could just go to a
Theater anyway.
park. If I had electricity at a pavilion or along a river walk, somewhere I could just set up and interview people and talk, I thought that'd be so much fun. And
Yeah.
you don't need to have thousands and thousands of dollars tied up in equipment. You can do this probably with stuff that you already have, especially if you're podcasting already. You probably have most of the stuff that you need to be able to just go somewhere, set up, and do an interview.
Yeah, yeah. So as regards the download number, is there any number for the downloads? Do you maybe need to like be 1,000 downloads, 10,000 downloads, or it doesn't really matter?
No, I don't even ask that question. All my deals, everything I do is a handshake deal. I don't have a rental fee. I don't have a minimum amount of ticket sales that you have to do. I will actually I build you a landing page and sell the tickets for you. I record and produce the event. I give you back the recording. I take zero ownership over your content. When you record something, it belongs to you. If you want to release it, it'd be nice if you mentioned us. I'd hope so. Like, hey, hey, we were live on the main stage at the Poduty Live Podcast Theater in downtown Tarentum. Here's our show. That's great. And then at the end of the night, what we do is we sit down together. I go over the dashboard where we sell the tickets and I say, hey, we brought in $200 of tickets. Our deal is we split the door 50-50. As a podcaster, you walk away with $100 for an hour of work, and the house gets $100 to cover the expenses, the lights, the heating, and the staff. And that's how we do it. If you like doing that, guess what? We'll do it again. If you didn't like doing it, we shake hands, we tried it, and we go our separate ways. Maybe it's something you want to try again in 6 months. That's okay too. My goal is to find people who want to be here, who want to create, who want to put butts in seats over and over again, turn that room over, bring in an audience, have a great time, and then do it again in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Your venue offers a 50-50 ticket split, right?
That's
With
correct.
podcasters. Yeah. I'd love for you to walk us through the numbers. What kind of ticket price work for podcast events, and what revenue potential is this for creators?
Yeah, the ticket prices vary depending on the events. We have some, live stream events that sell a $5 ticket, and in person might be 10 or $15. We've had, some like more instructional events where they're $50 to $100 tickets. We have a magician coming in, he's doing a $30 ticket. So I would say on average that most tickets are in the 15 to $20 range, and that's usually a 90-minute to a 2-hour show. So we want to make sure we're giving value for the ticket price. We want people to have a good time. We want people to feel like, okay, for $15, I got 2 hours of live entertainment, crafted, just for me to be there. And when you start looking at the numbers, the way I've built this is it's built to scale without increasing expenses as it scales. So
Yeah.
I just have a flat fixed expense of I have my rent, I have utilities, and then that's it. Like an insurance. Like that's it. And then whether I sell, 10 tickets and make $100 or I sell, 2,000 tickets at $10 a piece, my expenses always stay flat. They don't increase as my volume increases. So
Yeah.
the way this scales is, different than if you had to go rent a theater or go rent
Yeah.
a hotel ballroom. that starts those expenses add up quickly. And if you need more things, you need more chairs. If you need more, lighting and AV and more staff, all those expenses grow rapidly. For me,
Yeah.
yeah, it's turnkey. You come in, we have our tickets, you do your show, and whether you sell 4 tickets or 400, it doesn't matter to me. My expense stays the same, and in fact, the more you sell, the better it gets for both of us.
Yeah. So it's more like a partnership between you and the podcaster.
Yeah, and that 50-50 actually isn't written in stone. As somebody a show comes in and they're more of a draw than the theater is, I want to reward that. I want somebody who's bringing in people, who's doing the work to promote the shows. And so that split will actually start to move into their favor as, if they
Yeah.
sell 80 tickets and then 200 tickets, it's probably going to go 60-40 in their favor, or 70-30 in their favor. There's so much that the talent deserves, and there's an amount that the house needs to make sure this place can run. But it's at some point, it's not fair to. I wouldn't take 50% of somebody who sold 1,000 tickets. That I obviously didn't sell them 1,000 tickets.
Yeah.
That's them being the draw. So, that's a split that would go 70-30. They would get a much better cut, and they would be rewarded, for being able to sell so many tickets. And
Yeah.
the other way that will shift a little bit is at some point as the dates start to fill up and there's less and less booking time because people are doing shows. I'll probably have some sort of minimum on the weekend. Like, you have to, if you're going to do a show on a Saturday, you've got to guarantee like 30 tickets being sold. Just because it's not fair for somebody who could sell that kind of tickets to get blocked out
Yeah.
because you booked the dates. That kind of show I would move to like a Tuesday or a Wednesday
Yeah.
and try to get the bigger shows on the weekend who can guarantee them, more
Yes.
ticket sales. But
Yeah.
but for the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday shows, that's for the newcomers, the people trying it out, the people who wanna just test the waters. And
Yeah.
then I hope that the Friday, Saturday, Sunday shows are for the heavy hitters who really just wanna do a great job and they put on a great show.
Yeah, I feel like the fact that it's ticket sales, for most of the time, depending on when the creator like starts announcing that they will be doing a live events and stuff like that, most of the times, maybe if it's a month ahead or stuff like that, people get to start buying tickets. So you can get to gauge how many persons are interested in this idea, right? And know, okay, maybe a lot of persons are coming, so we have to like make some adjustments rather than, people just show up and, of course, a lot of persons will show up that day, but before then, most of the people would buy the ticket beforehand. So it gives you a sense of what's going to happen for that day.
Yeah, you'd like to think that, you get a good barometer. You do see shows that do one of two things. They do start selling tickets early, which is great. You love seeing that. Some shows just kind of sit there for a while, and then they kind of like slowly build momentum. Like each ticket sale for each show is its own journey, and it's really its own story.
Yeah,
But I typically find like shows that are selling tickets, they tend to only sell like 40 to 50% of their tickets sell in the like 3 to 4 days before. So even if they are selling tickets for, a month or two, really half of the tickets only get purchased in the last couple days. It's really crazy. It kind of keeps you on pins and needles the whole time.
yeah. I think 3 to 4 days. That's like more than enough time to make adjustments, just in case maybe okay, we budgeted 50 persons we're going to show up. Now we have over 200 persons who have bought the tickets. It's like the way you explain how Poduty is built. Like you can easily adjust and change things to cater for that.
Yeah, like I said, it's almost like you're watching a story unfold, and it's every show is different. It's really crazy just how different, tickets sell for different genres like magicians, or we have a ghost story podcast coming up and they're already moving tickets and they're not for another 6 weeks. So that's going to be a phenomenal show in April. You just get these feelings about the shows,
Yeah.
and the sales really tell a story for you.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like I think I had a podcast episode recently with a guest, I think Matthew, and he talked about that sometimes you might feel that an idea might be important, but when it comes where you really test how important that thing is to people is when you ask them to pay for something.
Yeah. 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 I
Yeah,
mean, we're really trying to deliver value for the money of the ticket. So,
yeah.
I when we structure the shows, I try to walk the podcaster through. I said, "Hey, these people are coming to see you. They want to see not only how you make the show, they want to see what you look like, they want to see how you perform, but they probably also want to ask you questions." So, in that 90 minutes that we're kind of putting the show together, it looks like your podcast is maybe 45, 50 minutes. Well, maybe we should bake in like a 20-minute Q&A so the audience can ask questions and get to know you a little better. Maybe they have some personal questions, want to know a little bit about, what do you do outside of podcasting? Do you work or and then let's bake in a meet and greet after that too cuz they're already coming out to see you. They'd love to probably shake your hand, get an autograph, maybe if you have merchandise, sell your merchandise.
Take some
So,
selfies.
yeah, we're trying to build in this value for the ticket so that it's a great experience for everyone.
Yeah, we talked about ticket sales and all that. Apart from ticket sales, what are some revenue streams that we get to benefit from actually doing live events?
Yeah, you can sell advertising for your live event. You want to have a sponsor for the event, you want to hang posters or banners on the stage. You're welcome to do that. You could put an advertisement on the ticket. You could put an ad space on the ticket, and that also instead of thinking of recording as something you do in your home office, now recording actually becomes a revenue stream for you because whether you recorded it at home or not, you were going to edit it and release it as a podcast. But when you record live and I do the production and I do the recording and I give that to you, I also give you money from the ticket sales. So now you can think of your recording as a way to make money as a revenue stream. You can make a couple bucks. You sell the sponsorships, you sell the tickets, you sell merchandise while you're there. Now all of a sudden because you went from your home studio to a live audience, you just opened 3 or 4 more revenue streams for your podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I feel like once you can get the attention of people of the people, like there's literally anything you could do or you could sell depending on your niche and industry.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, you tend to figure out what works for your show. You kinda know, like, what does your audience like and, what's some feedback that you've gotten in the past, and those are types of things that you incorporate into the show.
Yeah. We talked about, when you started talking about live events, right? A rough sketch I had in my head was for coaches and probably, a lot of podcasts that are, what would I call it now? Educators, education podcasts, like they help people solve a particular problem, not like those entertainment podcasts. Um, could the live event work out for someone who's like, okay, I've been teaching a lot of persons, I've been giving really good advice on the podcast. Now I want to actually give you guys coaching. It's just for a select number of persons. We're looking for 50 to 100, and I'm going to sit down, have dinner with you, and we're going to just talk and we're going to just chat, and then probably raise a situation where we get to raise the price a bit from maybe $15 to $20 to maybe 100 to 200, depends on something that really works, because this time it's just going to be a big table, and you're going to have the creator at the what do you call this part on the dining table. He's going to sit at the part where he's central, and everybody just gets to eat, and they talk, they ask questions, and he gets to give advice like it's a family setting.
Yeah, you can use these events. Consultants use them, use the studio space to, they do their podcast. Maybe their podcast is real estate investing or, business coaching. I have somebody coming in who does, lifestyle and health coming up. And, she's going to use this event as, maybe a $100 ticket. But her purpose is to get in clients, bring people into the theater and then spin those off into higher ticket items. So, you come in, you get a great lesson, you get some great coaching for the day. That's what the ticket price buys you. But for a certain percent of the people, if she gets 10 or 20% of the people in that audience, to enroll in her coaching program, now instead of making the $100 per ticket, she might be making 2 or 3 or 4 or $500 for that her coaching services. So,
Yeah.
she's using the event as a way to grow her business.
Yeah, and I'm also seeing the opportunity where she gets to get really valuable piece of content from the event itself.
Yeah, she can use that over and over again to sell,
Yeah,
sell, sell.
like I feel like when we listen to experts coach their someone or the members, like there's this connectivity we have. It's like we immediately pick up the story of that person, and it's as if they are talking to us directly rather than the normal content out there. Having someone calling or where they are actually giving coaching advice to someone, right? I feel like there's a way we just connect and relate with that the person they are coaching, right? It's different from it becomes there's a story to it rather than you just giving okay, here are 10 tips to start a podcast versus someone calls to your show. You mentioned that you have a podcast called Rise and Shine, right?
Yes.
Where someone calls in to the Rise and Shine, or you do a live event, something like that, and then instead of just the generic, oh, this is what you should do, this is what you should do, someone actually comes to you and say, well, I'm broke, I can't afford to buy a mic or any of those things, and this is what I have, this is what I have. What should I start? It's way different now. There's a story now. There's someone that you were giving advice to, and it's just different from actually giving generic advice. And I guess is that as podcasters, it's just generic advice we can give in a way, because for most of the time we just can't give super specific advice, because then it's even though we are advised to talk to one person, most of the time it's a lot of different persons with a lot of different case scenarios that are listening to our show. So as much as possible, we try to give advice that everyone would find useful.
Yeah, so like for this event coming up, she is going to give, to the person who could afford the ticket, that person's going to get a great lesson, some great coaching, and then part of that day will be Q&A and really picking the brain. You're also paying for access to that coach or consultant so that you can talk to them in a way that you couldn't talk to them on the podcast. And then those who really take the deep dive, maybe she has a private club, private login where people
Yeah.
hang out and they collaborate. And really what you're doing is you're buying more access to her. Kind of, when you
Yeah.
start to think of these membership programs, you bought the access to go to the live event and hang out with the coach. Then if you really, really like her and that information you got was so valuable, then you buy access into the membership program, and there you get all the nuts and the bolts and the nitty-gritty details. You get everything in that package. But the show is designed to be a teaser, to be a taste of how good this coach is and what the coach can deliver on.
Yeah, yeah. Like as the more you just keep talking about it, I'm just like my head is just spinning with so many ideas and so many things, so many ways we could like you could actually create a lot of content from that stuff, depending on how much you release. Like I'm just in like the Q&A, that could be an episode on its own, the individual coaching sessions and an episode on its own, and you could even live stream to YouTube directly. Like there's just so much content you could create out there, and it's more like killing two birds with one stone.
Oh yeah, the amount of content you can take from this is unreal. You mentioned the Q&A itself. Each Q&A could be a short form video, right? How do you do this? Well, here's my answer. Well, that's now a video. Next question, how do you do that? I give the answer. That's another video. So even these little micro moments within the huge event can all be broken down into little content. You got video for YouTube, you got videos for TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah,
You get a lot of stuff that you can repurpose from these events.
yeah. And I notice on TikTok and on Instagram that those kind of videos, they really do well, because I for one know that I watch those videos where there is a coach who's like giving advice to someone, and like for me, like it catches my attention, especially when it's an industry that I'm interested in.
Yeah, there's so much great advice, and those things, even you can use them to propel your future live events. So,
Yeah.
even if you tag the end of the little videos like, "Hey, we'll be back live at the end of April. Make sure you get your tickets now." So
Yeah, so
they heard the question, they heard the advice, and then you add a little tag at the end about make sure you don't miss our next live show. I'm going to give away The best tips, we're gonna build on what we learned in the last event.
Yeah, and I feel like having your audience in real time, right? It's like the best way to get data. You might be thinking that okay, let's say for podcasting now, let's say the roadblock for podcasters is that probably they can't afford to get gears and all those stuff. And then you realize that when you start asking them questions and they start asking questions, you realize that well, getting the gear to start a podcast is not their problem. Their problem is the mindset, the limiting belief that they're not good enough, that they don't have stuff to talk about and stuff like that. And then you're like, wow, so I've been trying to solve this problem, which yeah, it's a good problem, but that's not their pain point. This is their major problem. And then it changes everything you thought you knew about your audience and it helps you to serve them better.
Yeah, I mean, most people don't even realize that, using your podcast example, is you're right. It is a mindset because most people already have all the things they need to already do a podcast. It isn't overly complicated when you break it down into what it actually is and what you can do. Everybody has a phone. At the bare minimum, you can do some recording and get that audio fairly cleaned up just using your phone. Or,
Yeah,
for 20 bucks, you can get a Bluetooth microphone for your phone. So within $20, now you're recording right on your phone.
yeah.
You have the tools already. You just have to be creative and determined to get it done.
Yeah, you're even talking about $20. Like there's so many AI apps that will clean your audio without you even having mic safe. So having
Yeah.
a phone is like a mobile studio.
Yeah. I mean, the you're absolutely right. The technology's there to do things that you couldn't do 5, 10 years ago. You can actually get a pretty decent recording on a phone with a lavalier mic in a quiet room.
Yeah,
And then you run it through some processing. All of a sudden, you have almost it sounds like you were at a radio station recording this piece of audio that you made in the phone in your closet. So
yeah,
there's so many things you can do. Your limitations really are your beliefs if you can or can't do it.
yeah. I think right now there are so many tools and so many things are getting easier every day. Podcasting itself and business and all these other creative endeavors, they are becoming harder because there's so many voices, there's so many things we could be doing, there's so many things that are voices that are whispering in our head as compared to like in the past. Like podcasting is getting less and less technical compared to what it was then. Then you had to like understand how to like manipulate the audio waves and the audio forms and level up. But now there are tools that you just upload your audio and your video and it will normalize the audio, raise everything up and make everything snappy. And you're like, wow, you feel
Yeah, where were these tools 10 years ago?
yeah,
The capabilities are you really just being a little person in your own home, you have the capability now to access tools that make it sound like you've hired a team of editors.
yeah. You talked earlier on about how people who can't probably maybe access something like Poduty, how you even started Poduty itself. Like you talked about how you got the equipment and some of the things for cheap, like less than I think about 20% the actual price of the stuff. Now for creators not everybody get access to Poduty. Some persons are in other continents, other countries, a completely different place. And you talked about it, right? Now, I know you've mentioned it, but I'd like for us, people would have listened. They're like, wow, I'm super pumped. There's so many benefits I could get from a live event. There's so many things I could get from a live event. Now it's time for me to take action, right? Can you like walk someone through how they can spot opportunities, spot places and everything to get to do their own live show or live events in their
Yeah, I
area?
mean, think about the places where you can do it. It's it's not just you don't just need a dedicated theater space or a home studio. Getting a little mixer and some speakers isn't overly I don't wanna say across the world, it's not terribly expensive, but there's used equipment you can find, certainly. There's podcasters who love podcasting so much that I guarantee you they have a box of old equipment in their house, and if you showed interest, most podcasters would either let you borrow it or would sell it to you absurdly cheap just to get it out of their house.
Yeah,
So there's resources to access the equipment you need. And if a couple of your friends go in on it and you decide like, hey, maybe all of us will do like a half an hour one night, then maybe it's just your basement or your living room of your house, or you're inviting friends over. That's free. That doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
Maybe it's your front yard or your backyard where you're hanging out in the yard and maybe around a fire at night and you're telling stories in front of people. You just start doing it with these little tiny baby steps, and
Yeah.
maybe you access your local library or a school that has an auditorium and you say, "Hey, we want to do like a family fun night, a trivia night. We're going to play some games and we're going to just talk about sports, local sports, and just have some fun." You can start with these community spaces. They're all around you. There's parks, there's clamshell pavilions, little stages in parks. There's walking paths and even picnic pavilions that all have power run to them. You can plug in, do a show outside, get a little audience going for you. It's no different than you see street performers, playing a guitar or, singing a song or dancing or doing a magic show. You can do the same types of things with podcasting. You can take it anywhere and go do anything you want to do. Start with your friends in your living room or your backyard and just have some fun with it and just keep building on it. You're going to get a recording back at the end of the night. Your first couple are going to be atrocious. You're going to hear the fire crackling and people screaming, babies screaming, and you'll start to figure out, well, how do I limit some of this noise? And the next time you do the recording, it'll get a little better. And you'll
Yeah.
do it again and you'll get a little better. And that's how you do it. You just start with baby steps. You don't even think about, coming to a place like I have as a theater or filling up, a local, auditorium. Those are steps down the road. But they say the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. So
Yeah.
do a recording in your backyard with your friends. Have a couple drinks, hang out and just see what happens. See how much fun you have on the microphone, especially listening back to it in the morning. You're like, "Oh my goodness, what were we talking about?"
Yeah, like earlier on you talked about revenue split and all that, and I feel like there's a lot we can do with partnership and all that because there are a lot of like depending on the kind of show. Like let's say you're doing a political show or social awareness show or stuff like that. You could partner with the government. You could also to give you maybe one of their community hall. You could also partner with NGOs. Like it's more like looking for people whose interests kind of like what do you call this word now, intertwine with your interest, and then you partner with them, and it doesn't have to be money or any of those things. They give you a hall and you just mention them and say, oh, these guys are great people and stuff like that.
Oh, there's all kinds of partnerships, like especially if you do a bar or a coffee shop and you're going to promote them, they'll probably slide over, a cup of coffee and some pastries for
Yeah.
you. Hey,
Yeah.
getting paid in food isn't a bad gig.
Wow.
So, you promote the venues, you promote the businesses, and maybe you go to a bar the next time and they slide over a couple drinks and some appetizers.
Yeah.
At some point, they'll see, hey, maybe these people are drawing people in. Maybe we can give them like $50. Maybe give them $100 to come in and do a live appearance.
Yeah. Wow, that's really, 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 really nice. You're a podcaster, right? And a lot is changing on the field and everything. Things are getting easier and things are also getting difficult, as we talked about it earlier on. How do you see the podcasting world changing in the next 5 to 10 years?
I'm one of those old school guys who say, a podcast has to be an MP3 file distributed by an RSS feed,
Yeah,
to a podcast app. I still like that idea that that's what podcasting is, but the reality is those walls are crumbling down fast, and the definition of a podcast is changing rapidly.
yeah,
And are we creating podcasts or are we creating independent media? It's kind of, yes, a podcast is part of it. Yes, you can still create something and distribute it as an MP3 file, but it's also way more than that now. We're introduced video. YouTube is making a play for video, and Spotify is making a play for video, and these platforms want to erode what the definition of a podcast is so that they can kind of lock you into their little walled garden. So, you want to see Spotify videos, you got to watch them on Spotify. And,
yeah,
YouTube wants to own all of podcasting and have everybody just watch podcast videos on YouTube. So
yeah,
that definition is changing. And I get even what I'm doing. is a little bit outside of what a podcast is. It's not changing what podcasting is, but I am definitely expanding what it can
Yeah.
be. But everything I do it's for the audio. So we give you back the audio to release your stage presence as an MP3 file as your podcast. So I still want people to do that. I don't want people to just come in and think of this as a YouTube video. The purpose of this place is still to get the audio, a good recording, a good audio, a clean audio recording. But, I am doing a live show. That's way further than what a podcast recording is. I am giving you video. That's way further than what a podcast should be. So
Yeah.
those definitions are changing and it's evolving, but the essence is still there. It's still independent media creation. It's
Yeah.
still you're the creator, you're the producer, you're the owner. No one can tell you what to do, when to do it, how to do it. This is you. You are the industry now. And that's not going to change. And so if you keep the mindset as, okay, I'm this creator of this content, it's mine. I own it. Nobody can do anything about it. Then, I'm happy with that. I think keeping that DIY mentality, that independent like being an independent media mogul, it's pretty exciting. Like
Yeah.
I basically own a little television station and now I'm producing shows for people who own all the content themselves.
Yeah, wow, that's really nice. I feel like Spotify, YouTube, and all these platforms, what they are doing is probably they're looking at what their audience wants and what will make them more money. Because the more they serve their audience, the more they make more money. But then, as creators and podcasters too, we should also be looking at how can we give more value to our audience, right? Apart from all the figures, all the numbers, and everything, how can we serve our audience better? And if audio only is the way that your audience wants it, and that's it, and that's okay, it's fine. You don't have to do what everyone else is doing. The goal, we shouldn't lose focus of why we're doing the podcast itself. It's because we want to help people, we want to entertain people, and yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's entertainment, right?
Yeah.
And we have the power now to entertain at a scale that wasn't possible in any capacity 25 years ago.
Yes.
There's no way I could go directly to the public with a trivia show, right? That's something
Yeah.
I can do now. I can produce a show live on stage, have interactive players around the world playing at the same time, and just having a good time overall.
Yeah.
So, we're leaps and bounds ahead of where we were, and we're leaps and bounds we're catching up to what traditional media has been for 100 years. Like
Yeah.
everybody is now what we would have an NBC or CBS or ABC television station. You are now that in your house or your theater.
One final question before we conclude the interview, because it's over an hour now, and time it's amazing how time flies when you're discussing something really, really interesting. What's next for Poduty Live? Any exciting plans on the horizon?
Well, I have when I turned 48, I gave myself 2 years to figure this out because I was thinking about this concept for 7 years. And I kept talking about it and telling everybody the infinite seat theater, the a podcast theater. I think there's something there. So after spending time looking for buildings and piecing it all together, I said, when I turn 48, I need to either know if this is a thing or not a thing. So I gave myself until I turned 50 to figure out, is this a real thing? And I really think there is something here that's way bigger than even what my idea is right now.
Yeah.
I think that this model will get copied and reproduced all around so that whenever there's not just Pittsburgh, but Cleveland and Cincinnati and Baltimore
Yeah.
and New York City start to have little podcast clubs, now there's a support system for independent podcasters to go to a 4 or 5 stop tour over a weekend and stop in different cities, do their show, and then come back home with money in their pocket because they had this network of getting supported across the country, and that's what I want to see. If whether I do that or not, I think it's going to happen. I think that there's going to
Yeah.
be podcast theaters, dedicated spaces for live arts and performing arts specifically for podcasting. that just don't exist right now, but I think that's coming in 3 to 4 years, if not faster.
Yeah, with AI and everything, with people being cloned and all those things, I feel like people will be looking for the best way to get a form of human touch and human connection. And I think live events would really, really thrive. Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. You can't get any more real than somebody on stage in front of you.
Yeah. Because we can't even trust what our eyes and ears hear on social media, on video, on audio anymore. Okay, can our listeners connect with you and learn more about Poduty Live?
Yeah, go right to the site. Go to the source, poduty.com, poduty.com. I have the current events that we're going to be producing coming up. I have that business model I was telling you about. It's printed right there on the home page. So if you don't believe me, take a screenshot of it and bring it in, and I guarantee you that's how we operate.
Yeah.
Poduty, poduty.com, or find me, Jeff Revilla, on LinkedIn. I have a pretty good presence over there, and I like to meet other podcasters. Revilla, that's Jeff Revilla. Find me on LinkedIn, reach out, and say hi.
Yeah, it was really, really nice talking chatting with you, Jeff. And I've had so many ideas of things I could probably do with my own podcast. Probably in the future, I'd love to chat with you regarding podcasting and all that. You have your own podcast and you've been podcasting for a while, so it's more like you're solving your own problem, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I built the thing that I would want to do if I just did podcasting on my own.
Yeah.
This is that space, and people are starting to take advantage of it, and I love it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Once again, listeners, you can connect with Jeff at poduty.com. That's poduty.com. And you can find him on LinkedIn at Jeff Revilla. That's Jeff, then Revilla. Thank you once again, Jeff. It's been a great time chatting with you.
Thank you so much. I hope I added some value to the audience, and I look forward to connecting with everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.